Okay. The other week on the Tornado Cash episode, you mentioned the concern that some people had that sanctioning code could be in some ways a violation of free speech. And I brushed it off.
Quite furiously. You kicked me so hard in the shins when I said that I actually started bleeding. Like it drew blood.
I mean, I find the concept absurd, obviously, but I should explain why I do. And I'm going to do so right now, very quickly, because I did receive some feedback about that. On the internet right now, in the comments section of every website, they have spam filters. Well, because, as people know, even right now, even with spam filters, there's so much fucking spam on any comment section of any website ever, especially if they don't have something filtering for spam. We're fine with the concept of someone's free speech, of someone who writes a bot or a script, posting random spam comments or affiliate links and for weird SEO purposes or for like some political purpose. We're totally fine with saying, no, we're going to censor those comments. Even like free speech advocates don't think that we should allow like random spam messages and comments to be thrown all over the internet because it would break the entire internet. Like the entire thing would be unusable. My point being, everyone kind of has a level at which free speech is not allowed. In that case, it's links to Viagra.
Or like streams for boxing matches.
Well, yeah, exactly. So like free speech absolutism doesn't exist. So that's my example of why we constantly are stopping people's free speech and stopping code as free speech all the time because it would make the whole world completely unusable. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, sure.
James.
Raf, I got a question for you.
Go on.
What color is your Bugatti?
It's like pearlescent rainbow.
Pearlescent rainbow? So it's kind of like an oil slick, like the
Yeah.
reflector of when there's like a petrol on the ground at the petrol station?
Yeah, kind of. And it says hustler mindset.
Okay, cool. Hashtag hustler mindset?
No, just hustler mindset.
Cool. Yeah.
What about yours?
I don't have a Bugatti, actually. I drove a Hyundai Getz.
Fair enough. I don't actually have a Bugatti either. I drive a Skoda Kodiaq.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, I think we both have very sensible cars. Today we are talking about Mr. Bugatti himself, the top G, a gentleman by the name of Andrew Tate, who inserted himself into the world's consciousness over the past few months. But you tell me you hadn't seen him before everyone started talking about him.
Yeah, well, I mean, last week we were discussing doing this episode. Subsequently, he's risen to more prominence. I'm not that across like internet culture, I guess. So the only way Andrew Tate came across my radar is people talking about him, the reaction to. And because it was someone I'd never heard of, my eyes just glaze over and I scroll past. But he obviously became more and more prevalent. And apparently he was impossible to miss.
To shake, yeah. So some context for probably the few remaining people on this pod who have not been exposed to Andrew Tate in some way. He is a former kickboxing champion, British-American guy.
Weird accent.
Strange, yeah, weird fused accent, who basically became, overnight, essentially, the new face of kind of like the manosphere online. So everyone kind of knows what this is. Sort of like they used to call it like men's rights activists. I think that term has been not used quite as much anymore. But basically, it's the guys who are, their target audience is mostly young men, some teenagers to guys in their 20s, telling them to, pull their socks up, start working out, seize the day, hate women.
Yeah.
The sort of the playbook. There's been a bunch of them. There was Milo Yiannopoulos. There was Ben Shapiro. He was kind of maybe not quite like that, but his politics sort of stuff was adjacent. Jordan Peterson obviously was the big one a few years ago. And there's been other ones along the way. But Andrew Tate was the guy right here, taken to an absolutely like clownish degree.
Yes.
Where his stuff is just like, he just gets up and says stuff like, eating sushi is gay. If you hold a bottle of water for longer than 10 seconds, that's also gay. Basically.
Sunglasses indoors.
Never wear a shirt, smoke cigars. He runs some sort of sweatshop for OnlyFans models. They say that he had his house raided for like sex trafficking in Romania. Anyway,
he lives in Romania now. And
that's great.
For sus reasons is the implication that I get on the internet.
Yeah, so there's a lot of law there that I don't think is super important. But the main thing is that he suddenly became popular because he infiltrated everyone's algorithmic feeds, whether you were watching, Instagram Reels, whether you were watching TikTok, whether you were watching YouTube. The algorithms of these platforms were just pumping Andrew Tate content down everyone's throats. And basically what that looked like was mostly podcast appearances that he had done on other podcasts in this sort of like constellation of like right-wing dudes where he would be saying the things I was just talking about, women are property, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, coronavirus scam.
I don't know if he did COVID.
No, he did. I watched. I've been watching a few now. I've been catching up.
Oh, okay, cool. Actually, you know what? I do know the one you're talking
government is controlling you.
That's right.
Be a free thinker.
That's right. Yeah. Be a free thinker and just watch hours and hours and hours of Andrew Tate content.
But how did he do it?
Yeah, so
he hacked the algorithm.
Yeah, so he hacked the algorithms and did something which pushes it into the territory of down round, basically. He was running was essentially kind of smart, if like a little bit evil, content pyramid scheme, essentially. What Andrew Tate was doing is he ran like a self-help program for dudes called Hustlers University. So, this is part of the right-wing manosphere dude playbook. So you tell dudes they got to get better.
Wash your penis.
Yeah, you need to wash your penis. And to do that, most effectively, sign up for something they're offering. Whether they're selling like nootropics and like other things like that, or they will always have like some sort of online course. That was the line that Andrew Tate pursued with Hustlers University. And basically what Hustlers University taught you to do, I'm pretty sure it had like some sort of vague pickup artist element, but it was mostly about how to make money. And it was like through all sorts of things, like obvious ones like here's how to invest in stocks and cryptocurrency, and had like tips for both, but also had like here's how to get into the copywriting game, and here it's like you can return to like Bronze Age mindset by writing like sparkling ad copy or something. But how to run affiliate marketing, all these sort of like modern ways of making money on the internet.
Drop shipping, I assume.
Drop shipping was on there, yeah, like all that kind of stuff. Again, so weird that this is kind of like, this is how you be a man in 2022. You just sit on your laptop and like order stuff from Alibaba and send it to people. But the way that he made it work is it had an affiliate marketing component where you, as a member of Hustlers University, could get discounts on the program or paid a small amount if you went out there and shared Andrew Tate's content
with links back to Hustlers University.
So if people clicked through from the content you were sharing and signed up for Hustlers University, you got discounts, you got a small amount of money. And they were all kind of like all these clips, all these podcast clips that people have been exposed to constantly over the past few months were all in like a Google Drive or something. The way that it worked is that, from my personal example, I was seeing like literally once every 2 videos on TikTok was like Andrew Tate talking about, I don't know, his Bugatti or various things that are gay. And if I blocked an account because I was like, I don't really want to see this guy, another one would spring up with a different username. And it turned out it was just all these, I guess, 20-year-old guys are all members of Hustlers University trying to make a buck or a saving on their membership. So all of a sudden he became the most Googled man on the planet. His clips were, I think the stat quoted in one of the reports was something like his content on, I think YouTube alone had been viewed over 12 billion times.
He's the new baby shark.
Exactly, yeah. And all these secondary stories came up about, teachers in schools were freaking out because all these like 7-year-old kids were just like quoting Andrew Tate clips.
Yeah.
And the latest update, which is now everywhere, is that he's shut down Hustlers University because all the platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, decided to clamp down on his videos and like manually stop them from showing up in people's feeds and making the affiliate program essentially not work.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't think Hustlers University is shutting down, just the affiliate program.
Yeah, right, because basically the platforms are able to silence him.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of free speech.
Well, now, so the ones I'm seeing now are other right-wing figures being like, this is why they wanted to shut him down. And it was, they're like
the COVID
speaking
thing.
Truth about COVID and
that
that kind of stuff. More broadly, though, this brings up, once again, that issue of, okay, you have a guy, sus guy, saying some relatively heinous stuff. I mean, I'm sure if you look it up, like there's some bad stuff. Not good, folks. But once again, we're kind of relying on these platforms to shut it down. Like if you agree that he should be shut down or at least not amplified, we're relying on kind of the platforms to do the policing for us. How do you feel about that?
For me, it's like a multi-part problem. The fact is that the free speech question is obviously one thing. And, there's a really simple free speech argument you can have, which is whether it's a private company or public space or whatever, people should be allowed to sort of say things that are legal. Like, obviously, they shouldn't be able to advocate for serial murder or whatever, but they should be able to say whatever. But then that question becomes so complicated when it's not just, here's a guy who has set up a TikTok account and is saying heinous shit, which, in my opinion, who cares?
Yeah.
It's more like, here's a guy who has figured out one weird trick to become literally the most viewed man on the planet by like fucking around with the algorithms.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, we have no choice but to allow the platforms to kind of like clamp down on that, because it's like, that's their problem.
No, totally.
It's the same as if like a hacker had got into their servers or whatever.
Well, yeah, if the user experience, like you were saying, that your user experience was terrible on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously TikTok, from an objective perspective, like it's the same if, I don't know, some weird sport, kabaddi, was just dominating your feed and you had no interest in kabaddi. They'd want to be like, we got to fix this algorithm thing.
Yeah, totally. So there's that kind of element, which I think makes it like less of a free speech thing and more of like, as you say, a pure sort of customer experience one. Obviously, it's like a PR disaster for TikTok if like there are all these parents, like my 7-year-old son is walking around the house saying that sparkling water is gay or something.
Wait, isn't he the opposite?
Actually, we had this conversation the other day. I can't actually remember what he stands. He has a very strident opinion on sparkling water, but I can't remember. I can't remember if he's stridently pro sparkling water or stridently anti. I think he's pro. I think the idea is that water is only for hydration. So if you're doing it like in a leisure
recreationally,
context, if you're using water recreationally, it's got to be the sparkling stuff. I'm pretty sure that's his stance. And obviously, I have no problem. I'm a big sparkling water fan. I have no problem.
As am I.
I have no problem with like 20-year-old dudes being told that that's what life's all about.
Yeah.
Not sure about the other stuff.
Tragic. The worst person you know makes great point. Yeah?
Exactly. So the thing that I find so interesting on like a cultural level, everyone talks about algorithms are kind of like the beating heart of culture now, right? And I find it so interesting that someone can like surf algorithms to like be in the brain of everyone on the planet. I think the stuff that he says is highly objectionable. I think it's like, but as I said before, it's so clownish and stupid that like it just doesn't deserve to be.
Yeah, well, hence why it appeals to like 10-year-olds, literally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And edgy teens and stuff. It's part of that whole genre where you have edgy younger males, which is a broader, I think, societal issue, is that younger men feel alienated and
totally, yeah, absolutely.
They have no positivity and like youth suicide is through the roof and blah, 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 blah. And they don't see any future and they don't feel anything. And so they get to say something edgy on Xbox Live. Like they say the N-word on Xbox Live and people get mad at them and they actually feel something. For once they feel something.
Yeah, too. And all they need is like some guy to say, you have value.
Yeah.
And obviously they dress it up with a bunch of other stuff. And, as shitty and awful as Andrew Tate is, at least he's kind of like a shredded kickboxer or whatever. As opposed to like Jordan Peterson, who's just like this weird old benzo addict who cries all the time. If I was about to do an impression, bro, I'm not going to do that. But the other side of it is that like the algorithms can like amplify these people to such an insane degree within certain demographics. So when I first started getting served absolute shitload of Andrew Tate content, I just tweeted like one night at like 10 o'clock before I went to bed, because I was writing something on it for the newsletter. Real the terminal heads will know I've written about this. I just fired off a tweet that was like, hey, has this guy crowbarred himself into everyone's feeds as much as he has mine? And I went to bed and I woke up in the morning and I had like 15,000 retweets. And it was all these dudes being like, yes, and it's like the most annoying thing in the world. And a bunch of his fanboys were also replying. But then there was a whole bunch of women that were like, no.
Yeah.
Because obviously whatever TikTok's like weird Byzantine algorithms doing, it's doing it based on, whatever bucket it puts you in.
Yeah.
And you, I mean, obviously you don't consume too much content.
No, it didn't cross my path.
And I asked my partner, and she had never seen him when I was only seeing him. People talk about like, the alt-right or the right-wing rabbit hole that people go down, or like the pipeline, where you're just getting served algorithmic content. And I think, there's like value to that view. But there's also the fact that it's like, my content universe is so different to the person next to me. And I can see someone so often and be exposed to them and just like know everything about these weird characters that get put in on my like dashboard or in front of me. And then I can just talk to like someone who I'm really good friends with and they'll be like, I have absolutely no idea
what the fuck are you talking about.
We talk about like the dead, like the monoculture is dead. We don't have big cultural moments apart from like the new Game of Thrones show or whatever.
Yeah.
I watched that last night. It was okay.
And the slap incident.
Exactly, the slap incident. Yeah, people need these little signposts to these things to latch onto. But that's just what I find so weird about like algorithmic culture, is how like everyone is in their own little buckets.
And that is also just fueled by, as you say, pure engagement and an algorithm rather than... You can obviously have subsects of culture and always have where people have different interests, but you usually have like producers also responsible for the distribution. And by that, I mean, Gucci has an audience of people and customers that they're producing for, and also to a certain extent responsible for the distribution. But in this world, you have these random producers of culture that are uploading their content, and then algorithms are basically deciding, I say algorithms based on human engagement are deciding kind of what takes hold. But the fact that it's far more opaque and you don't really have like, Gucci have their relationships with networks and with department stores, et cetera, and this very obvious chain of distribution, whereas TikTok wouldn't really be able to tell you why you're seeing Andrew Tate and I'm not. It's happening with so much content, so many different demographic points that it's nearly impossible to really work out why.
Yeah. And especially like now that, as we talked about in the previous episode, all these platforms like Instagram, whatever, are trying to like get away from, basically it's like a shift from like stated preferences to revealed preferences. Forget about the stuff you say you like. We'll just give you a fire hose of shit we think you'll like. This stuff is only going to get more like pronounced in the future, that you're going to get your own little blinkered universe of shit that they want you to see. We had this conversation around like when Trump got elected or whatever.
Yeah.
When it was like, oh, people are stuck in their filter bubbles. And I feel like it's like a deeper and weirder and like different problem now.
Yeah, well, it's not like Democrats and Republicans are seeing different content. How will they ever align? You say it's like these micro bubbles.
Yeah, these like micro bubbles of just taste and people. Someone who could be like the most famous person in the world to you because you see them so often and nobody else knows who the hell they are. I don't know. You see it play out a little bit in some of like the traditional markers of culture. Like when you see that like, Bad Bunny or whatever is the absolute number one streamed artist in the universe right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I'm old now, but like also you don't get exposed to that so much through like mainstream television and whatever.
No, totally. It's a weird world. Weird, sick, sad world.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah, world's fucked, lol. That was one of my meme accounts, actually. It did pretty well.
Nice.
Shut it down.
Got too hot?
I just didn't want to be part of the problem.
That's right, exactly.